0 Mile Fun Run at KSJE.com.
Second, join us at San Juan College Graduation Plaza on Saturday, May 18th.
Third, run. We'll start the race at 10:30 a.m. on an actual 27-foot course downhill, and that's it.
All proceeds benefit listener-supported KSJE.
So register now at KSJE.com.
Have you ever used a friend's prescription painkiller to get rid of a headache or something else? Or have you experimented with someone else's painkiller to get high? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you've misused or abused prescription drugs. And if you mix these medications with alcohol or other drugs, you increase your risk of addiction, overdose, and even death. You need to think twice before you take someone else's prescription meds, and never share your meds with others.
A message from the San Juan County Partnership, 505-566-5867.
I'm John Lienhard with The Engines of Our Ingenuity. Every day we talk about human invention and creativity in science, technology, and the arts. We talk about all the drama and intrigue, insight and personal conviction that constantly bubble just below the surface of a world built by human hands. We honor complexity at the same time we keep things understandable. Do join me. We'll have a lot of fun together.
Weekdays at 5:45 on KSJE. Hi everyone, I'm Scott Michlin.
And I'm Jenny Lee Ryan.
And we're here to tell you how to become a 0 Mile Achiever.
First, register online for the 0 Mile Fun Run at KSJE.com.
Second, join us at San Juan College Graduation Plaza on Saturday, May 18th.
Third, run. We'll start the race at 10:30 a.m. on an actual 27-foot course downhill, and that's it.
All proceeds benefit listener-supported KSJE.
So register now at KSJE.com.
KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, your community hospital with a rich heritage that dates back to before New Mexico was a state. We've been improving the health of the Four Corners since 1910. As a nonprofit hospital, San Juan Regional Medical Center is a values-driven organization. We strive to deliver on our mission to personalize health care and create vitality and enthusiasm in healing. We are here for you when you need us, offering a comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and emergency care services.
Eleven minutes past 8 o'clock. It's Monday morning, April the 22nd. Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Michlin. Thanks for tuning in this morning to KSJE 90.9 FM, the information and cultural beacon of the Four Corners, broadcasting to you from the campus of San Juan College. It's great to have you along with us. A special good morning also to our viewers who are joining us via our visual radio platforms on the KSJE Facebook page and YouTube channels. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for watching this morning as well. Coming up in just a moment, my guest this morning on the program, T. Greg Marion's going to be here in just a moment, talking about the San Juan Basin Energy Conference, which begins in a couple of days here at San Juan College. Also some good insight, I think, into the energy markets in our state. Of course, we've got booming times in the southeast corner of New Mexico near the border with Texas. Not quite so much here in the northwest corner of the state, and T. Greg will explain a little bit of that to me and us this morning at 8:10 when he joins me here on KSJE. Later on this hour, we do every Monday, which is talk to Lewis Campbell about technology in our Monday Reboot segment. That's coming up today at 8:55 right here on KSJE. Mick Hess will be taking over the radio station at 9 o'clock, roving with the arts after the news at 9:06. And today, Mick is playing some music from Mozart for us on Roving with the Arts at 9:06. Don't forget, we want you to register right now to join us on May 18th for the KSJE 0 Mile Fun Run, $15. Gets you a great T-shirt, and you can join us on Saturday, May 18th. The race will start at 10:30 and go until 10:31. Basically, because it's 0 miles, everybody. But it's a great way to support KSJE. $15 is all it takes. You can register online at KSJE.com. And, of course, we'd like you to connect with us on all platforms of social media where you are, on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or on Instagram, of course. And check out all of our social media platforms, and you can keep track of what's going on here at the radio station as well.
Joining me now on KSJE in our visual radio studio to talk a little bit about the upcoming San Juan College Oil and Gas Conference is T. Greg Marion, whose name means energy, I think, in this part of the world. T. Greg, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
You, of course, are with Marion Oil and Gas. Your family's been involved with energy for a long time, so I think a lot of folks recognize your name and your face, and so there's no one else we could talk about that knows more about energy, I think, than you do.
Well, thank you, and I'm so happy to be here this morning, and look forward to visiting with you about oil and gas and about the upcoming conference.
The conference, and again, we should mention that is coming up again at the end of the week. The San Juan Basin Energy Conference here at San Juan College at the School of Energy, April 24th is the conference date, correct?
That's right. April 24th, we've got an opening dinner and reception at
That's
the Marriott.
Wednesday, right.
That's Wednesday at the Marriott Courtyard. And then all day Thursday, we've got a wonderful lineup of speakers at the Henderson Fine Arts Center. And then Friday morning, and we've got more speakers, and then we'll wrap things up at noon on Friday.
Okay, and the focus is to talk a little bit about the basin, San Juan Basin, as an energy producer, and some of the issues that are facing the companies that do business here. Is that kind of the focus?
That is absolutely the focus, Scott.
Right.
We've, over the course of the last decade, do you need to?
Right. The alarm. No, we're good. We're good. Okay. There's a little beep in the background, everybody, but we're good.
Okay.
This is when we talk about how we're a radio station.
If this is a fire alarm or something, let me know, and I'll.
But this is when we talk about that we're a radio station, not an airplane. So that's when we're in good shape. But thank you.
All right. This basin has gone through some dramatic changes, and many of the big players that had been here for many years are no longer here.
Right.
Everybody's familiar that ConocoPhillips sold out to Hilcorp. Maybe you're not as familiar that following that acquisition, Hilcorp also bought out XTO.
Okay.
And so now Hilcorp is absolutely the largest producer of natural gas here in the San Juan Basin. They produce over 40% of the natural gas that comes out of the San Juan Basin. So they're a big player now.
And are they, when you compare the two, they're a little different than ConocoPhillips? I think they would be the first to tell us, probably.
They're very
They're
different.
not the same as ConocoPhillips was.
They're
or
not
even
the same.
Burlington before them, I suppose.
Right. So ConocoPhillips, when you talk about oil and gas companies, there's the majors and then there's the independents. And a major is considered vertically integrated, and what that means is they not only produce the oil and gas, but then they also refine it, distribute it.
Own some pipelines, perhaps, those types of things.
They do it all.
I see.
They do it all.
Okay.
And that's why you can pull up into a Conoco filling station. And so they've
Right.
not only produced the raw product out of the ground, they've refined it and distributed it, and they sell it to you as a refined product. That's called a vertically integrated company. That's what major oil companies are.
Okay.
Independent producers produce the raw product out of the ground and then sell it, and that's all.
And then you're done. You move on to something else.
You just concentrate on that one process.
I see. And so today in the basin, we don't have as much vertical integration anymore. Then is what you're saying?
We do not. We do not. Hilcorp is a very large independent producer. The other big companies that have come in are Lagos. That's J. Paul McWilliams heads that company up.
Right.
Enduring. That's Barth Whittam. He and his company are actually headquartered in Denver, but they also have a presence here in the Farmington area. And then DJ Resources is another company that's headquartered in Denver and has a presence here in the Farmington area now. And they're different than the DJ Simmons of old.
Right.
DJ Resources is a different company. Those are the four big players now. Those are the four big players. They're all large independents. They all have what's called private equity backing. And so these companies, first of all, the game has changed in the oil and gas industry. And I know people have heard about horizontal drilling and multi-stage fracking. And let me just take a minute now, and I'm going to explain to the audience what that's all about.
Okay.
So
it's using technology.
It absolutely is using it is using technology. Historically, oil and gas producers generally would drill vertical wells to what was known as conventional reservoirs. And conventional reservoirs were the sandstones and limestones that contained oil and gas.
The pocket, I suppose, or no?
They and that's actually a misnomer.
Good.
People a lot of times.
Correct me.
Well, people a lot of times think that we're drilling into caverns below the surface of the earth that contain all this oil.
Not so much.
The reality is the oil and gas is trapped in the tiny little pore spaces that you find in the sandstones and the limestones.
I see. Okay.
And so historically, that's what was done. We drilled to conventional sandstone and limestone reservoirs with vertical wells, and generally there's also rock that's known as shale,
right?
And shales. Back when I went to school and studied petroleum engineering, nobody really believed that you could economically produce oil and gas from shales, and it was because the shales had too low of porosity and too low of permeability. Permeability is how well the pore spaces are connected.
Okay, right.
And so it just
didn't spend much time looking at it, I suppose, right?
No, we knew that there was lots of oil and gas that was trapped inside the shales, but we also did not have a practical way to economically produce the oil and gas from those shales.
And that's the key, I suppose. I mean, you could spend, I guess, a couple $1,000s on a well site to get the oil out of the shale, but it didn't make economic sense to do that.
Right, and it's actually tens of millions.
Or tens of millions,
or millions of dollars,
right.
Anyway. But
now today, that's different.
Today, that is different, and that's what changed the face of our industry. And so, back in around the end of the 20th century, in the 1990s, there was a gentleman by the name of George Mitchell with Mitchell Energy, and he had a large acreage position in the Barnett Shale that was located around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And apparently he missed class that day when the professor told everybody that you couldn't economically produce oil and gas from shales, and he was bound and determined to figure out a way to economically produce the natural gas out of the Barnett Shale.
Okay.
And he spent about a decade trying different techniques, and he finally cracked the nut. And the way he did it is he drilled a horizontal well in the shale, and then he put multiple hydraulic fracks along that horizontal leg.
Okay.
And he exposed a very, very large surface area of that Barnett Shale to the wellbore. And he was able to economically produce natural gas from the Barnett Shale, and that kicked off a frenzy. Once he unlocked the key to economically producing hydrocarbons from shales, all of a sudden that same technique was applied to all of the shales all over the country and all over the world. And
this would be what, early 2000s about?
This was
probably?
in the early 2000s.
And when we saw all the activity up in the Dakotas, I suppose, and some of that.
Up in the Dakotas, it's
Right,
called the
Pennsylvania.
It's called the Bakken Shale, and that's an oil play.
Okay.
In Pennsylvania, that's called the Marcellus and
Okay.
Utica Shale.
Right.
That's a natural gas play for the most part.
Right. But same technology, right, for both, whether it's
same
oil or
technology,
gas
Same
coming out of shale.
technology. And so horizontal drilling was not new. Horizontal drilling has been around for many, many decades.
Right.
Fracking is, to a lot of people's surprise, is not new. Marion Oil and Gas began back in 1960. My dad risked everything to drill a well on some family-owned minerals. He named it the Edna Number 1 after his mother. That well was a vertical, conventional well
Right.
that was drilled into the Gallup sandstone, and it was fracked. And so our company is 59 years old, and so fracking has been around longer than that.
Right. People are surprised to hear that, I think, how long that's been used for energy.
Sure.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and part of the reason they may be surprised is because they probably have the same notion that the oil and gas is trapped in these caverns beneath the surface of the earth. The reality is it's trapped in those teensy-eensy little interconnected pore
Pores
spaces
of the rocks, basically.
of the rocks.
Okay.
And when you understand that, then you realize why there's an absolute need to crack the rock to really get that oil and gas to flow out of it.
Right.
And so the bottom line, though, is horizontal drilling wasn't new, fracking wasn't new, but combining those two techniques and applying it to a formation that heretofore nobody thought could be economically produced changed everything. That's the magic. That's the shift that happened in our industry, and now that is the primary activity that's going on in most of the major producing basins around the country.
Right. We hear a lot about it of southeast New Mexico and West Texas.
Southeast New
Big
Mexico
boom.
is one of the hottest
Right.
oil and gas places on the face of the earth, the Permian Basin.
Right.
It's an oil play.
Okay.
And they're applying that same horizontal drilling, multi-stage fracking to a number of different formations within the Permian Basin, and it's working very, very well. And
It's been amazing to me as an obvious outsider of the industry to see that the United States is now a net, or the world's largest, I think, exporter now of petroleum, of oil.
the largest producer of oil.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which would have been unheard of a decade ago.
Right.
I think.
Right.
But all because of what you're talking about.
All because of what I'm talking about.
And these companies are able to do it economically and
Very
and learned a lot
economically.
about how to get it out of the ground when prices are even at $50 a barrel, it seems.
Yes, and that to me is another amazing thing that's going on. It's complicated drilling horizontal wells and doing these
Sure,
multi-stage fracs, and the United States and the companies that are doing this have gotten very, very good at using this technique very, very cost effectively.
Right. Which means when the price of oil is $50 a barrel, you can still keep people working.
That's right.
And get it out of the ground. If it's $100 a barrel, more so the better, I suppose.
Absolutely.
But when it's 50 or even 40, I mean, that's been kind of how we've seen it up and down the last couple of years.
That's
so.
right. That's right.
And so bringing the conversation back to the San Juan Basin, we
Yes.
have a little bit of shale here.
We do. The name of the shale here in the San Juan Basin is the Mancus
Right.
Shale, and it is being developed. And another unusual characteristic of shales. Now, normally when we were drilling into, say, a conventional sandstone reservoir, you would have oil, water, and natural gas trapped in that reservoir. When you drilled into that sandstone, you would find the water at the bottom of the sandstone, and then above that would be the oil, and then above that would be the natural gas.
Okay.
That just based on the density of those fluids over geologic time, they had separated themselves, and that's how you found them. And so, at the highest point of the sandstone formation, you would find natural gas. A little bit deeper, you would find oil. A little bit deeper, you would find water. It's actually just the opposite in shales.
Really?
And so here in the San Juan Basin, in the deepest part of the San Juan Basin, in the Mancus, we've got a large reserves of natural gas, and then as you come up shallower, we have oil. And then even shallower, there's been no oil and gas generated, and the shales are full of water.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
so what happened is that's when oil and gas is just organic material that's been trapped beneath the surface of the earth. It's undergone some very high temperatures and pressures, and when it underwent those high temperatures and pressures, that organic material was cooked into oil and gas. And in the deeper part of the basin, the temperatures got higher, and so the organic material cooked into natural gas. And in the shallower parts of the basin, the temperatures didn't get quite so high, and so the organic material cooked into oil. And even shallower, no organic material got cooked. And because the shales are so tight, they have such low permeability that the fluids just stayed right where they were cooked into place. They never
Didn't migrate around or anything, I suppose.
They didn't migrate and resort themselves out based on their density. And so that is an interesting shift in the way we think about things as well. And so here in the San Juan Basin, in the deep part of the San Juan Basin, we've got a natural gas play in the Mancus.
Right.
It has not been very developed. There's been a handful of wells, less than 10, drilled in the deep portion of the Mancus, where the natural gas is. There's been some very good wells drilled, but natural gas prices have been very low for about a decade now.
Right.
And we're victims of our own success. When this horizontal drilling multi-stage technique was developed and we applied it to all the shales everywhere, we actually created a glut of natural gas domestically. And that drove the price of natural gas down.
And this basin still is primarily a natural gas
basin. And this basin is still primarily a natural gas basin. However, as I said, in the shallower part of the Mancus,
there is oil.
There's absolutely an oil play, and we've drilled about 250 horizontal wells in the oil leg of the Mancus play. And we're drilling some very, very good oil wells, and that's where most of the activity is. When people drive down 550 through Liebrook, if you drive at night, a lot of times you'll see flares along the highway. You'll see drilling rigs working.
That's where the oil is.
That's the oil
Right.
play.
That's where we're talking about.
That's the oil Mancus play. It absolutely is.
And so not as much as natural gas as we have said, and certainly the area of Menka Shale, or I'm sorry, Hobbs, New Mexico, and that area has got the majority of the activity.
They do.
There's more oil there.
There's more oil there. There
Got it.
absolutely is. And oil prices are at a level where you can very economically drill these kind of wells.
Right.
And so the oil plays, there's more capital being spent on the oil plays right now. And it's just
Gotcha.
because of price.
All right. T. Greg Marion is my guest this morning. We are talking about oil and gas, of course, here in the San Juan Basin, and the upcoming San Juan College Energy Conference, which is going to be happening later on this week here at San Juan College. And so to bring it back to the conference, T. Greg, I imagine conversations like this are what's going to be going on at the conference, and talking about, I guess, the long-term viability of this basin for energy production?
That's absolutely right. You know, we want to introduce the new companies to the community.
That you talked about earlier?
That
those
I talked
companies,
about
right?
earlier.
Mhm.
Yes. Hillcorp's president, Brian Wilbanks, actually, I guess he's their senior vice president. He'll be here speaking, which we're excited to hear him. Jerry Austin, who's the vice president of DJ Resources, will be speaking. J. Paul McWilliams, who's the president of Lagos, will be speaking. Those are all new companies that have purchased significant assets here in the San Juan Basin, and it'll be really interesting to hear about why they purchased those assets and how they plan to develop those assets.
Right.
And J. Paul also invited a gentleman by the name of Charlie Poole, and Charlie Poole is a director of ArcLight Capital, and ArcLight Capital is the money back in Wall Street
Right.
that backs Lagos.
I see.
Again, as I mentioned earlier, all these companies are backed by private equity. Charlie Poole he works for ArcLight, which is the private equity that is behind Lagos.
Got it. Interesting.
And so, because these companies are all, at least in part, backed by private equity, we wanted to understand what that's all about. I can tell you generally, these new horizontal multi-stage frac wells are very, very expensive to drill. In the oil leg of the Mancos, they're spending around $5 million a well to get it drilled and completed and tied in. In the deeper part where the natural gas is, we're probably going to be spending more like $10 million a well.
Wow.
And so it's very, very expensive to play this game.
And that's a lot of natural gas at the prices we're seeing today. You have to get out of that well to make it
absolutely
pay
is.
for itself, I suppose.
Right. At the prices we're seeing today, the economics are marginal at best, and that's why you don't see a whole lot of activity going on in the natural gas part of the Mancos.
Oil's a different story.
Oil's a different story.
Okay.
Oil's a different story.
Interesting. And so with these equity firms that are helping these local companies, I guess the word investing almost, in these local companies, does that mean they have to be more conscious of stockholders or results or profits or things like that in order to keep everyone happy?
Everything you just said is absolutely correct.
Okay.
You hit the nail right on the head, and I think that Charlie Poole is going to be telling us the very same thing you just said. Is so the way it works is the private equity lends money to the company that it's backing,
right,
and lends them generally hundreds of millions of dollars to go about buying properties and then drilling these wells to develop them and prove them up.
Mm-hmm.
And so they lend them money, and then after a certain period of time, and generally that's about a 5-year time span, they'll want their money repaid with a preferred rate of interest.
Right.
And then after it's been paid back with that preferred rate of interest, then the private equity company and the management team that's developing the oil and gas resource, split everything that's above that. That's just a rough
Sure.
picture of the way that game works.
Got it.
And
But that's why we're seeing the activity here, because of these companies.
it's a very necessary part of the picture because it's so capital intensive. We need companies like ArcLight and other private equity companies providing the capital necessary to develop the resource.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
And so with the conference later on this week, T. Greg, I mean, it's open to folks in the industry who want to learn more about what's going on, to hear from these leaders of these local companies.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let me say a little bit about that.
Yes.
So the tickets to the conference are $250. We have booths available now. 21 of them out of the 25 have been spoken for.
Oh, okay.
But we've got
So
4
few.
booths available. They're $500. There's sponsorships available if people are interested in sponsoring the conference, and there's multiple levels that you could sponsor the conference at.
Okay. That $250 will get you to all 3 days of the
$250
programs?
gets you to the dinner and opening reception on Wednesday evening.
Okay.
It gets you to all of the speakers on Thursday, including a very, very nice lunch. And then it gets you to all the speakers on Friday morning
Friday.
as well,
Okay.
and both Thursday morning and Friday morning from 7 to 8 before things kick off, there'll be coffee and pastries in the lobby as well. It's an opportunity for people to get together and do some networking. Besides the private equity companies talking,
Right.
and the new companies to the San Juan Basin sharing what they've got going on. We've got 2 keynote speakers that I'm also excited about. Gary Lakowski, who's the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Land and Mineral Management for the BLM. Okay, so he's coming out. That's a big title.
Yeah, right. That is a big title.
Okay. Gary Lakowski is coming out of Washington, D.C., and
And of course, you can't do anything oil and gas related or anything without involving the BLM in the state, I would think.
You're exactly right. Particularly up here in the northwest portion of New Mexico, most of the lands are federal.
Right.
And so most of the lands are regulated by the Bureau of Land Management in regard to oil and gas activity. And so it's going to be very, very interesting to hear from Gary. How he sees the BLM continuing to regulate our industry.
Sure.
And so we're super excited about his update.
Right.
Then on Friday morning, we have Cabinet Secretary Sarah Cottrell Probst. She was just appointed by the new governor to be the Secretary of the Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources Department. And so the state also oversees oil and gas activity, and the new administration is sending a signal to our industry that there's some new regulations coming down the pike. The first one we're going to see is in regard to methane emissions,
Right.
and doing whatever we can to reduce those. There's also a push from the new administration to move away from fossil fuels and more into renewable energies. And so Sarah will be talking about those initiatives, and we're excited to hear what she has to say and because it's absolutely going to have an impact on our industry and the way we go about our business.
Sure. And as you mentioned, I think when we first sat down to talk today, that there is change and challenges
Yes.
to the industry.
Yes.
And this could be part of that, I suppose, right?
It's
and,
absolutely
And,
part of
and I don't hear you saying that those are totally off the table, that you're worth having a discussion about if we want to try to control methane emissions or
Yes.
move more towards some renewables or other things. I think a lot of folks have said we're still going to need oil and gas. We're still going to need to drive our
Right.
cars and play with our plastic things that we have and our smartphones and what have you. That's still part of our energy picture, but there is another part of this industry that we should be talking about.
Right, right. That's absolutely, it's well put, and so she'll be here to tell us about the new initiative. And,
Right.
And so,
Is there room in the San Juan Basin for both, do you think, T. Greg, to have the oil and the natural gas that we've been so dependent on, that's created so many things that we enjoy here for quality of life and things like that? I don't think it's any secret that this town, this college, a lot of things we enjoy by living here wouldn't be possible without a lot of the generosity of the oil and gas industry and companies. But is there room for renewable and other conversations about adding to the energy mix of the basin?
Absolutely, absolutely. Energy, whenever I talk to groups, one of the things I say is look around, and is there anything that you can see? Is there anything that you can see that wasn't either made from, transported here with, or manufactured using oil and gas? And when you put it that way, people realize, wow, there's nothing that I can point to. Even the air in the room, the temperature is controlled.
True. Right.
Using energy, and so energy. People don't realize, but there's a component of energy in everything. And you're absolutely right. The more energy you use, the higher your quality of life, the better your quality of life. And so there's absolutely room for more than just oil and gas.
Good to know, and good to hear you say that, I think.
Right.
But I think a lot of folks do realize how much this community's economy relies on the oil and gas. And,
Right.
and I think
Right.
everyone's happy to talk about renewables and
Right.
bring those things in. And I've said it before on this program, I think if we had a solar field to point to and say, look at what they're doing, that
Right.
we've broken ground and we've got something that we can point to, but that hasn't happened yet. I keep waiting for the day when I hear about a groundbreaking, but we're not there yet. But
Right.
people are talking about it, so
Yep, absolutely.
we shall see. But this conference is a great start, I think, to talk about where we are
Yep.
as a community, as a basin, and it's still viable from what I hear you saying.
Well, let me talk about that for a minute.
Okay, we only have about a couple of minutes remaining,
Okay,
but yes, I would like you to talk about
well,
the future of the basin.
the future of the basin. This horizontal drilling multi-stage fracking, because it allowed us to now explore formations like the Mancus,
Right.
and economically produce hydrocarbons from the Mancus shale, which prior to the turn of the century, nobody realized that this wonderful Mancus shale that's been here in the San Juan Basin for hundreds of millions of years, and we knew it had lots of oil and gas contained in it. We didn't ever know that we were going to be able to economically produce that oil and gas out of that shale. Now that we've unlocked the key to doing that, so from 1921, when natural gas was first discovered in the San Juan Basin, our 100th birthday is coming up in a couple
That's
of
right.
years, by the way, which is exciting. We've produced about 50 trillion cubic feet of natural gas equivalent here in the San Juan Basin.
Okay.
With this new technique that we're able to apply to the Mancus shale, we've got at least another 50 trillion cubic feet equivalent that we can now produce from that shale.
Wow.
And so
Okay.
it greatly extended the life of this very mature oil and gas producing basin, which is very, very exciting.
It is exciting. I know people were talking about peak oil and gas not too long ago, and it sounds like we're not there anymore.
No.
Not at all. But folks might still say, but we're not seeing the activity that we saw back when things were rocking and rolling. Is that because of the technology and it takes less maybe manpower to do what you used to do 10 years ago?
It has to do. I mean, most of the activity currently, Scott, is in the oil. And we've got there's been about 3 or 4 drilling rigs running.
Okay. That's up from 0, so I'm okay with that.
Right, yeah. right. And because of the low natural gas prices, there hasn't been a whole lot of activity in that.
That's the real driver, I suppose, of employment and economic development. And those
certainly,
types of
if
things.
natural gas prices were another buck or two higher, you would see a lot more activity.
Got it. But at least at where they are, there's some activity.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So, I think there's a quote by Tom Dugan, and he said, we'll still be producing oil and gas 100 years from now, and I think that's true.
Okay. That's good perspective
to
have on the whole situation, because there's a lot to talk about, and we could stay here for another hour, but I know you need to get going, as do I, and we're running out of time. But T. Greg Marion, I can't thank you enough for coming in and talking about the Energy Conference, which will be happening, as you mentioned, opening on Wednesday, a full day on Thursday, and another morning session on Friday of this week.
That's exactly right. Scott, thank you so much for having me.
All right. You're very welcome. Always a pleasure.
Okay.
T. Greg Marion, my guest here on KSJE.
Outside our studios this morning, it is 54 degrees at San Juan College. Good morning, everyone. It is 8:50 a.m. Our weather forecast for today, we're expecting a sunny morning, but then some increasing clouds. A chance of a scattered shower or thunderstorm this afternoon with a high of 69 degrees. Maybe some showers overnight with a low of 46. More chances for rain tomorrow and cooler with a high of only 62. Sunny and warmer by Wednesday, 76. Even warmer on Thursday with a high of 81. And a high of 83 by Friday with mostly sunny skies.
This program is supported by San Juan Health Partners Urology, providing a wide range of personalized services for the whole family, including children. Our caring professionals are dedicated to helping meet your urology health needs with skill, experience, and service you need. For a complete listing of our services and to learn more, visit sanjuanhealthpartners.com or call 505-609-6300. San Juan Health Partners Urology, a division of San Juan Regional